All right, guys, so this is the second video of 4.4 part 2 or part B or whatever. So this starts example 3 and we'll finish it off here. So we have a word problem here. So it says during the first 5 seconds of a roller coaster, the ride is given by the function here that represents the height the roller coaster travels after t seconds. Okay, how long is the roller coaster at or below ground level in the first 5 seconds? Okay, so if our y value, or in this case our h, is our height, okay, when we're below ground level, that's right here. Okay, it's when our y value or our h is less than 0. That would be under the ground, so we'd have a negative height basically. Okay, well, as we can see right here, this is 2 seconds. Okay, but here it's not clear. We just know it's between 4 and 5. Okay, it could be a nice number, it could be a not nice number, but we don't have a clear picture. Okay, so what we want to do is we can find that by just given this graph. Okay, and we're going to find that using factoring. Okay, so you should be able to look at this graph and say, okay, well, if we factor this equation, okay, our zeros would be this point, this point here, this point here, and this point here. So we know we have zeros at -1, at 2, and I don't know, somewhere between 4 and 5. Okay, so what we're going to do is factor. So if we have zeros at -1 and 2, we know that two of our factors are going to be x plus 1 for the 0 at -1 and x minus 2 for the 0 at 2. Okay, so we're going to use good old synthetic division. Okay, so we're going to take this function here, 4, and we're going to factor it out. So -21, 9, and 34. Okay, so if we factor out the x plus 1 first, okay, so remember when we factor this out, we would put a -1 here. Okay, so we bring the 4 down. 4 times -1 is -4. Okay, if we add those, we get -25. -1 times -24, sorry, 25. -1 times -25 is a positive 25. Well, this would be 34. 34 times -1 is -34. That would get 0, which is good because this means we have a remainder of 0, which just confirms that x plus 1 is a factor. Okay, so if we take our x plus 1 out, so if we factor this, taking out our x plus 1, okay, what we have left is, remember, this is our remainder, this is our constant, this is our x, and this is our x squared. Okay, so we'd have 4x squared minus 25x plus 34. Okay, well, let's do the same thing. Let's go ahead and factor this more, and we could use synthetic division, because remember, we know that x minus 2 is a factor, or we know that 2 should be a 0. Okay, so if we do synthetic division again, okay, using 2 this time, because 2 should be a 0, we get 4, -25, and 34. Okay, so once again, our 4 goes down. 2 times 4 is 8. Oh Lord, that's -17. 2 times -17 is -34. And just like we want, we should get a remainder of 0, which we did. So this is now our constant. And this is now our x. So if I factor this out, I get x plus 1 and then x minus 2. And what I'm left with is this. So I'm left with 4x minus 17. Okay, now remember, I know this is my last 0. Okay, so to find out what this point is, I would say 4x minus 17 is equal to 0. So plus 17, I would get 4x equals 17 divided by 4. And so I would get x is 17 over 4, which is 4.25. Okay, so this here is 4.25. Now, to find out how long is the roller coaster at or below ground level, what I would do is I would take 4.25, this point, minus this point, which gives me 2.25 seconds on below ground. And that's it. All right, let's look at example 4 now. We have this theorem here, and it just says if x minus k is a factor, if and only if f of k equals 0. Okay, which should make sense. We have no remainder if it's a factor. Okay, so to find out if x minus 2 is a factor, once again, we're going to use synthetic division. So if x minus 2 is a factor, that means our 0 would be 2. So we're going to put 2 out front, and then we're going to do the coefficients. So 1, 2, and negative 4. Okay, bring the 1 down. So 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. Negative 4 plus 8 is 4. This is not a remainder of 2 or a remainder of 0. Therefore, x minus 2 is not a factor. All right, let's check B now. Okay, so we want to find if x plus 5 is a factor. So if x plus 5 is a factor, that means negative 5 is a 0, which means that when I do synthetic division, I should get a remainder of 0. Okay, now remember we have to put placeholders in. So I'd put 3x to the 4th, 15x cubed, negative 1x squared. We don't have an x, but we want to keep its place, and then 25 is our constant. Okay, so bring down the 3. 3 times negative 15 is negative 15. Add these, that gives me 0. 0 times a negative 5 is 0. If I add them, I get a negative 1. Negative 5 times negative 1 is positive 6. So when I add these, I get a 6. And then 6. Oh, sorry. Oh my gosh. Negative 5 times negative 1 is not 6. It is 5. Holy jeez. It is 5. So when I add 0 plus 5, that gives me 5. And then negative 5 times 5, there we go, is negative 25, which does give us a remainder of 0. Okay, so if I get a remainder of 0, that means that negative 5 is a 0, which means that x plus 5 is a factor.